Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 15th episode of the HSBG Podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I think you need to swap.
I know.
Yeah, all right. We're all good, man. We're all good. No, I'm doing well. How are you, Collins?
I'm doing great. I just need to swap the names real quickly, and then we should be good.
All right.
But
So now we can properly introduce our guest. Right?
I'm here with we're here with our special guest RDU. How are you doing today as well?
Great. Had a massive win streak somehow. I don't know. It's one of those rare days where I win games.
I think you're selling yourself short a little bit here. Every time I watch you, you're always on a massive win streak. So you're always like, oh, I got so lucky. I'm in a massive win streak, and every time I tune in, it's a massive win streak every single day. So
They need to watch more often.
that's probably true, but hope everything's well. It's really nice to have you here, right? I always wanted to talk about. So you play a lot of constructed and a lot of BGs, right? I always want to talk to you. How do you balance that, right? How do you balance the constructed and the battlegrounds?
Well,
right?
I balance it by not doing anything else. No, I mean jokes aside, it's basically just like streaming battlegrounds for like a bit less than normal. Like normal would be like, let's say 8 hours. I would stream like 5 and then just practice a little bit off stream before and after the stream. And that's usually enough to keep up with the rest of the Grandmasters. I feel like this wouldn't be enough 3 years ago, but the field is softer now, even in Grandmasters, compared to like years ago. I mean, it makes sense because the prize pool is like a lot of times smaller, and there's also way less people watching. So like being the best at constructed in the world is not as valuable as it was 5 years ago. So the competition is also a bit less strong.
That's an interesting thing. So you think it's gotten a little bit easier for you in constructed? Like you might say the competition's a little bit stronger, but maybe like you've played so long, you got better at analyzing what to do. But and you're kind of selling yourself short. Like, oh, I've played a lot of time. I know the meta. I know how to adjust quickly, so I can kind of get through it, right? Because I'm sure if you talk to all the other competitors, they wouldn't be like, we're weak, we're struggling right now. They'd be like, no, they're trying their best, right? But you've been there for a long time, and you've really had a lot of meta changes throughout your time playing, right? So maybe you've just gotten a lot better at learning how to adjust the meta quickly, figuring out what's good, and then executing on that really well. So
I mean, maybe for sure experience plays a part, but we also don't have players like Live Coach or Stan Sivka or Super JJ and a couple of others playing. So like the field definitely got softer, no matter how you look at it.
All right, fair enough. I'm not the one playing in the UR, right? So I will take your
also
expertise.
like Battlegrounds took a lot of the player base. Like Battlegrounds made a lot of people interested in only Battlegrounds, people that otherwise maybe would compete at the highest level in constructed.
That's true, right? I do think Battlegrounds did kind of take a lot of players as well. So that also is a good point, right? The player base is a little bit separate, right? The people that are playing Battlegrounds aren't necessarily like you, right? Who also plays constructed at a high level. So it did kind of separate a lot of the player base, and maybe the people that would do well in constructed are instead focusing their time in Battlegrounds as well. So that is also a very fair point too in doing that. But we know you can do it both. You can do both very, very well. So it's always good to have you here and see what you bring to this conversation when we talk about some of the Battlegrounds. We always start with the weekly overview, just kind of how things feel this week, right? We've had a recent patch that came out yesterday, I believe, and we're going to talk about that later. But overall, I want to talk about the patch right now, but overall, I think the meta has been getting a little bit better or a little bit less like crazy, where people like kill you out of nowhere and you don't really know. I think that's what we were talking about last week, where a lot of the times people would just kind of, you wouldn't know when people were strong, where you'd see them get something and then, okay, next it's like a Quillbor ramp or some random like Caligos ramp, and you just get killed from nowhere. I think that's gotten down a little bit. Of course, there's still like boat cheese or random like death rattle nonsense that can kill you out of nowhere. But I do think it's a little bit better, and with the patch changes, I think that also helps as well. What about you guys?
My week's been okay. I feel like I'm maybe a little bit too comfortable on tier 4. Sometimes like, I guess I could up this game, you know. So it's no, it's been solid. Same as always. I'm just trying to bide my time, trying to find those juicy triples. It feels like, I mean, we could talk about the patch, but I mean, we talk about this week. We kind of talk about it anyway. Like it feels like Flat Tusk is still like fine to pull, right? It's not like I'm like, oh, got to take the little rag, right? So like one, you know, doesn't really feel like that. What about you, Audie? Anything you've been noticing?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Flat Tusk is still like really good. Like now, without Agum, probably Charla is like strictly better. But like Flat Tusk is still a really good 6. And Kangor going to 5 makes it so that you want 6s even more. I mean, it doesn't matter that much because mechs are not always available, but it matters a bit.
Wait.
And yeah, regarding Tavern 4, I need to get better at like playing on Tavern 4 because I really want to go to 5. I don't know, I just want to go to 5. I feel like you cannot win games on 4 unless you play like an insane goal grabber or champion comp. Am I wrong?
You are just like me, by the way. Anytime I watch you, I'm like, yes, let's go.
Equal 6.
Because you're
10 gold, 6.
You're always pushing 6, and I'm so happy every time. It's like, yeah, I would do that. Every time I watch you, I'm just nodding my head in approval, and I just imagine Shady's like, no, no, what is this?
I'm quite happy. So I don't like playing on 5, right? So if I'm strong, I love early 5 and then into 6. But if I'm not strong, I usually just stay on 4. And like the times that you win where you're on 4, a lot of it is like some deflecto taunt scam.
Right.
That's really powerful, where you get arm and you taunt deflectos, and then they just have like these 40 health minions crashing into 40 damage shields, and then there's resets in the front, and then the deflectos keep going. So you can definitely scam, but obviously the guy on tier 6 is going to have the advantage. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's arm is very like key if you want to do super well on 4 a lot of the times, right? Just because you get a bunch of divine shields with an arm with taunted, and then like those 2 for 1 a lot of times, and it scales super fast. Where some like if the people on 6, right, they're not like, they might be 2 turns behind that. Those 2 turns of ramping, if you get the pieces quick enough, right, you might just knock them out of the game. That's happened to me a few times where I felt strong, and then it's like some random taunt arm comp, just like you know, and I take it. But you know, if you do survive, you know, you get that win, you know, you get that survival, you get the Caligos or whatever you want, and it works from there. So I do think there is justification in both strategies, where staying on 4, especially if you don't have like an early pair or early triple, or you don't feel safe, or you're low health, right? It makes a lot of sense. Just stay on 4, try to salvage the game, and you use arm to bridge that gap. So next topic we have Shady Bunny was on the Lightforge podcast this week. So they're a group, Merps and Adwater. They usually talk about arena, but they always try to add a little battlegrounds in the mix. So probably if you're watching on YouTube or something, you can. I'll probably put a link to that podcast in the description. But I'm pretty sure they were discussing taunt count for like 2 hours or something, right? What do you think?
Yeah, like Merps was just very interesting, because I guess the premise Merps had is that I play very different from a lot of the battleground streamers, very high ranked players you see. I think that is true, where my playstyle can be more described as boring, if you will, or methodical, if you want to use a nicer word. Where I go for the percentages most of the time, where I see like, okay, this is a really good game. This is where I can push. This is where I'm going to take chances and go for 6s and all that. But a lot of the time I will just say, okay, I don't want to risk an 8 or a 7 here. I'm going to either get a 5 or a 3 or a 2, right? If I get really good stuff on tier 4. And yeah, that was the basic premise of what we talked about. Just And then of course the different things you can do on tier 4, which we've covered. I'm not gonna repeat the podcast here. They can listen to 2 hours of taunt comp if they want to click the link. But that was pretty much it. Just Merp's interested in how I'm thinking, like how much do I want to force it? Like do I buy a bronze warden or an arm? Like I buy the bronze warden. Like I'm not that like into arm, but it's like if I have gold for both. All right. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Just explaining the tier 4 stuff, the mindset, also like the things we talked about with how you decide whether you're pulling a 5 or a 6, right? Elementals in or out, Quillboars, Pirates in or out. Like those things are important.
Yeah, so I mean, that's going to be there. We're going to have a link to that. So if you do want to get an in-depth look about taunt comp, I will say we have talked about taunt comp extensively on this podcast, but if you want more, we've got a host special there. So that came on this week. Our next topic will be the patch, just the basic thing. You surprised me because I didn't realize that Kangar moved to 5. When you were like, "Oh, Kangars are 5," I was like, "Wait, what?" Oh, I thought it was just like a random like, "Oh yeah, we'll re-nerf Kangar maybe."
Oh, back to
back to because it used to be a 3/6 at 6, right? And I was thinking, oh, maybe it's too tanky again, right? Like that might be the issue where Kangar's not dying enough. So let's put it back to 6 and then see what happens. But no, it's actually a 5 drop now. So that actually changes my whole thoughts. I thought it wasn't an important change. Like, oh, the stat change on Kangar is like, I don't care. But actually moving to 5, that is pretty big because that kind of, I'm going to say ruins your 5 options.
Does it really matter that much? It's like 25 5s or something like that.
It does a little bit because it makes my argument to go for 6s even more beneficial now, right? Because it's like, oh, I can't hit Kangar anymore, so let's just go for a 6. So I think that's how I'm looking at it. Not as, oh, there's diluting the 5 pool. I'm looking at, oh, the 6 pool's better now. That's how I'm looking at it.
That's so sad, right?
What's sad about that?
Poor Kangar. I mean, I think about it and I'm like, man, if I triple an egg, that could be really juicy.
True, that is definitely true. But let me talk about the particular changes. So Captain Flat Tusk still a 6 drop, still same stat line. It's instead of spend 3 gold you get a blood gem, it's now spend 4 gold get a blood gem. So I think we talked about this in a previous podcast. This was gonna be the likely change, right? Like this.
Yeah, that's pretty much said. Like soon we're gonna have to pay 4 gold for a gem. Yeah.
Like this is the Blizzard TM type change where they would just increase the number by 1, and then we're done. Hey, it's fixed. So it makes sense that this happened. And then the Kangar change moving to a 5. I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if that does a lot except for like diluting the pool, right? Kangar wasn't really picked because it's hard to run it unless you're running like specifically like bomb comp or like egg comp with barons, right? It's hard to pick this. That's like the only comp where these fit. But now in a sense you can run that comp easier. You can get the baron on 5, you can get the Kangar on 5, so you might see more bomb comps or America comps, as I like to call it, and things like that, just because you don't have to triple for the Kangar. You can just get a bomb, a golden bomb, get a baron, get a Kangar, and then let's hope for the best, right? That kind of thing. So it's gonna be interesting to see if more people play mech or death rattle mechs because of this.
What do you think about it, RDU? Like any thoughts on these?
I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Kangar, but already today I played a couple of times. I feel like it's definitely justifiable that they moved it to 5. And yeah, now it makes this type of like comps where you stay on 4 and go for triple legs and just stay on 4 the whole game. And other than that, it's just decent tempo. And sometimes it's going to ruin your pull for 5-drop discovery, but I don't think that's going to come too often. But it's a great change. And Flat Tusk, maybe they'll nerf it even more in the future, but I think it's a good immediate change to observe how things proceed.
So you're saying you don't think it's weak enough? You still think it's too strong? Apparently.
Flat Tusk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just together with Agam, it's too strong.
Just too strong. Okay.
They could also nerf Agam, and then like Flat Tusk is gonna be too weak.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah, right. Like, what else do you use the bludgeons on? I guess Ground Shaker, sure.
Yeah, Ground Shaker and Agam are like the two premium targets there. So I think it's funny that your initial assessment is that this is still too much, still too much hyperscaling. I haven't gotten to I hadn't hit a flat toast, right? I pretty much take Charles. I was taking Charles before the nerf, so I take Charles even more now, but I haven't played it, but I do think it is generally like a good direction for the nerf, and just I want to see if so I used to have games where the only winners were flat toast Agam comps, right? I want to see if that's still the case where it's only the top two or the top one is always flat toast Agam if Crowbar's in the lobby and that kind of thing. So if
wasn't the case in my games today, but it still seems like really good when you manage to hit it. But Flat Tusk on her own, especially if you don't have Agam, kind of risky.
Yeah, so at least you're introducing that risk to the game style, right? Because pretty much if you had the flat tusk and you didn't like die immediately, right? You're super happy, like, oh, I'll take a flat tusk, I'll do something. Now it's like you have a flat tusk and then you have to look for the Agam, and then you need to like have the other pieces, right? The divine shields or whatever you're putting the Lightfang Menagerie pieces on. So at least it's not like a insta win. I'll get flat tusk Agam and then insta win. It's like, okay, I got the flat tusk. Okay, I need to get the Agam and the pieces already set up so that I can scale properly. So I think it's a good direction, and hopefully it's not still too strong like you suggested.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be at the level of like if you discover it super early blank, maybe considering 4 Reaper or Gas Coiler should be a thing. And like if you pick flat tusk, you're gonna take damage from the next fight.
Right.
Something like that is the level that I see it as being healthy.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, since the upside if you get the pieces is so high. So
yeah, kind of like the Caligos, right?
Yeah.
Like still very good in some spots, but not always.
I've definitely had my games where you hit a Caligos and you're just like, yeah, I hope they don't kill me, and I don't get my hopes to pop off because they murdered me the next turn. I'm just like, yeah, I knew it. What about you, Shady Bunny? Have you played with the cards?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I've played. So I think there's two things to the flat tusk, and I think it's really hard indeed to balance the flat tusk Agam combo specifically, because it was already just, if you hit the combo, you were pretty much already not worried about your stats. You were just like, okay, how do I get scammed? I need the Selfless, I need the Baron, because I'm going to be bigger than anyone, like by a mile, right? So it's not a problem. So I think it's very hard to indeed balance it in that Flat Tusk doesn't become completely unplayable on her own, but she doesn't break the game with Agam. And right now that seems quite difficult because you can have things like Bran, which then creates a very easy way to just spend gold, get gold with like the elemental primal fin. You can have hoggers to generate gold. So if you get 2 hoggers in a flat tusk, you don't really care, right? You're still printing gems like crazy. So those combos are still relevant, but she is more vulnerable now early, and I think I definitely noticed that usually when you pull her, you have a way to still purchase a minion from the shop. Not always, but sometimes you'll have a money pirate, sometimes you'll have some tokens. And I used to love to do that, where you just sell, buy a shield, gem the shield, or something like that. So that doesn't really happen because spending 4 gold is extremely tricky to turn your puller. And then another one is tiering up. I tiered up and I got like 2 gems. I was like, oh yeah, I guess, before you could get like your 3 gems, and then maybe once again you had more gold banked and you'd get 4 gems that turn. And that is a difference for sure, especially if you do have a ground shaker. Getting those 2 or 4 gems, you might lose the round, whereas before it was just batshit crazy. You just, you have a shaker and a flat tusk, you're pretty much invincible until you get the Agam, and then you just face roll from there. As for the Kangor, see, I think it's funny. You're talking about, oh, I now no longer have to triple into it, I can just roll into it. I'm like, no, I don't have to level to triple into it anymore, right? I can just be on 4 and shoot for the Kangaroo. So I think for Greybow, this is a massive buff. It's like insane because a lot of the time on Greybow, what you want eventually is to get the egg with the Chad, the Kangor, maybe a Deflecto, and then a Harbinger, and you just print tokens like crazy, right? Especially if things die in the right order. If the Kangaroo dies while the Chad is still on the board, it's right? You just get so many eggs, so many tokens. And before you had to sort of take a risk because going to 5 kind of sucks for Greybow because you're still usually rolling for Golden Harbinger at that point, and going to 5 just makes it less likely. Maybe with a Faceless, right? But especially if you already have 2, the Faceless doesn't do anything. And now you can just sit on 4 literally all game and just, shoot for the Kangor. Because that is, in my opinion, the strongest Greybow build, where you get the egg, the Chat, the Kangor, and the Harbinger, and then, maybe Deflecto, maybe a champion. That's up to you what you prefer. So those are my immediate thoughts on the patch. Like Flat Tusk still strong but weaker early now. Obviously, there is more vulnerability, and then specifically for Greybow, I think the Kangor change is really nice.
Okay, that makes sense. Not you don't. I thought you'd be more sad, like, oh, this is gonna ruin my 4-drop pools or my tier 4 pools. Now you didn't even mention that at all. Don't seem to care.
Wait, tier 4 pool?
Like leveling, like getting it on you being a tavern tier 4 and leveling and having that in your options. I thought you'd care.
Oh, right, that I could just who cares?
All right then. Well, it's still okay. So assessment seems to be like still playing Flat Tusk if you get it and it makes sense. And overall, we like the Kangor change. Like it's not a bad change. That's what it seems like from both of you.
Both changes are pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Like the Flat Tusk was just safe, and I don't think they want to kill it already.
Right. So we like this patch. It was a small patch, just 2 changes, but I do think it is influential. No hero changes, unfortunately. I'd love to see them remove some heroes, but hey, what can you do? Next topic.
You're going like Illidan?
That hero, no. I think that hero needs to be God, man. I so many games. I know we talked about it last podcast. But so many games. I just have 4 heroes, but I'm like, why am I playing? I hate all of these options. So if we were to use that chance, I would be very happy.
Hear me out. What do you think of this change on Illidan? Every single roll, the leftmost and the rightmost minion cost 2 gold instead of 3, and obviously, if you switch them around, like they're gonna get the buff, like they get some green buff on them, and then you can switch them around and they still have the buff. But every single roll, the leftmost and rightmost cost 2 gold. Would that be OP? Would that be interesting?
Huh.
Well, making them 2 gold effectively makes them free, right? Where if you're like Millhouse, like so Elemental is free, the Tarpon, so your Millhouse for those 2 minions. That's what you're saying.
Yes, your Millhouse for your leftmost and rightmost minion that were the first leftmost and rightmost. Like if you start switching them around, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. That feels pretty. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to see if we haven't played with it, but for me that feels like some insane potential because that's two minions every tavern that are Millhouseable, right? If you want to turn it into a verb, but you can still roll for 1 gold, right? So effectively, Effectively, it's still so effectively you're getting 4 Millhouse minions per Millhouse roll, right? Because your Millhouse roll would cost 2 gold. So, and then I don't know. It's interesting. So a lot of it becomes like very Millhouse-esque gameplay then, just with a different.
I mean, isn't that what Battlegrounds is about? Just buying and selling.
Yeah, I love playing Millhouse. Don't get me wrong, I love it. Just say it. It's like you suddenly think like Hogger, but then again, like you need to roll the pirate, right? On the left.
You need to roll the pirate on the left or right. It's pretty unlikely. And like the higher you go up in tavern, the worse it becomes because you see 2 minions discounted out of a bigger pool of minions.
But it's still every roll. It's not like the first roll of the of the shop, right? It's every role. So
Okay, yeah, it's still every roll, so yeah, it doesn't matter that much.
yeah, you're getting a ton of value. That seems really strong because I know I will be like leveling and then buying for 2. I just see me leveling, buying for 2, and just doing the millhouse thing, and then not having to worry in the late game about like, oh my god, I have to roll for 2. I just roll for 1, and you still get that. You get that millhouse spike still, right? Because let's say you know, you probably don't level on 2 just like Millhouse, right? And you'll just buy whatever's on the left and the right, and you'll turn 6 is still okay. Like you buy 2 and then maybe sell 1 and buy a 3, right? So like you sell a token or something. So it's still not bad. I can I can see it being strong, very strong. This one.
This hero should definitely have leveling increased by 1, similar to Millhouse. Otherwise, you do Elise-ish stuff.
Yeah.
Just like level, sell, buy.
Yeah.
And that's too strong.
Okay, if
But if leveling is increased by 1, I think it can be interesting.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting. They'd have to play around with that and see how strong it feels, right? So
also, sorry, it could be the first roll of your turn, like just 1 roll, and that can still give you like sick early game.
Okay. Do we also keep Illidan's current current ability? As
no,
well?
no, just new hero power.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's more like the first roll of your turn gives you the discount, and that still gives you insane early game power.
Yeah, if it's but then it has to be you're keeping it thematic, right? It's not like all of the minions, right? It's still just the left and right.
Yeah, just left and right, only on the first roll. I still think it's gonna be like a top 10 hero. Just look at the guy who gives you blood gems. He doesn't do that much, and like it's insane. You don't need much. You seriously don't need much.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's really strong early, and that's probably the most important. Right? Like if you can Millhouse curve to Tavern 5 and then just like play normal from there, like that's still really strong. So I do think that would work as a hero. I haven't thought about that. That's a good suggestion. I don't know how.
But yeah, I was just saying that they should do stuff like this for like some of the unplayable heroes, or they could. No, they should. They can do whatever they want, but it's just sad to see 15 or 10 unplayable heroes.
Yeah, I would love for them to make like little changes to like the worst 3, you know, every week, every 2 weeks or something. Just like, you know, bump up the ones that don't get played or have really bad stats, right? Because, you know, we've had some heroes for months, and they haven't been touched, and they've been the same power level at the bottom for months and months, and they just don't get touched, and it's just like, you know, it's just like, oh, these are the heroes we just don't pick, you know, just don't pick these. It's just like, why not change them a little bit, right? No one's going to be sad if you make an unplayable hero less unplayable. It's like, well, we weren't picking it anyways. You know, there's 3 heroes you never have to see. So even if you adjust those and they get worse, right, it doesn't matter a bit, right? But if you adjust them and they become interesting, more playable, very fun, right, then we're getting somewhere. So I would love to see that as well. I know we're getting off topic a bit, but you know, you hit me with something I want to see.
I think a lot of players are just passionate about it, where they just see this very simple, obvious problem and like, please change, right? Like, please, because like the 4 garbage tier heroes at the start of the game just makes you not want to play, right? That's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something funny really quickly before the next topic?
Yeah, go for it.
Illidan is in the game for more than 1 year. He was released on 26th of the 3rd month in 2020.
Really?
That's what the wiki says.
It's been in the game for a year. It doesn't feel like it, but the game's been out Battlegrounds has been out for a long time now. Like
new hero, Illidan Stormrage added to the pool in patch 17.0.0.44222. I can link it one second.
Fair enough, but yeah, it's weird that it's been so long and it hasn't seen like a lot of changes or any changes at all, right? So,
yeah, 1 year and 3 months, quite a lot.
Yeah, you would
give
think
the worst hero in the game.
Yeah,
Unchanged.
you would think like they would get the Reno treatment or something, right? Where like they get a small buff over time until it's like really good, or something like that, you know. But
I mean, Reno is interesting, and like Iridan is just not interesting, and they cannot really make him better either. So they had to like completely redesign his hero power. And I think the rationale is if we redesign his hero power, we might as well just make a new hero,
and they do
more
that,
content.
yeah. And then they just ignore the the burning fire in the back. That is illegit. Oh man. Speaking of Reno, though, that is our hero for the week. Look how good I am, you know. But
Very smooth.
I think Reno's a pretty interesting hero, right? It's gotten a lot of like small buffs over time, and I think it's in a pretty good spot now where it used to cost. Did it used to cost 3 or gold or something like that at the very beginning? Or 4 gold. Oh my god, you're right. It used to cost 4 gold to make a minion gold, and they kept reducing it and trying to make it a little bit more playable, right? They actually cared about this hero, right? It's one of those heroes that they cared, they wanted to do well. You know, Illidan doesn't matter, right? Reno they do, right? And I do think it's in a pretty good spot, right? There's a lot of very, very impactful 5s and 6s, even some 4s where you hero power this and it just saves your game or gives you the direction in order to win. So I think there's a lot of good things about Reno nowadays that you could really take advantage of. Only issue is, don't hit a triple, don't hit anything good on 4, and you kind of don't have a hero power. But other than that, it has a lot of upside.
Well, anything you have specific to Reno, RDU? Like any game plan, anything, any little tips and tricks when you're putting
I mean, I won like 2 games today with Reno, and pretty much what I always do when I win with Reno is token start, strong 5 gold turn, 6 gold turn. Definitely don't power level. Very few games where I power level to Tavern 3 on 5 gold. I did well. So just play the normal curve and then hit on a triple on like 8 gold or 9 gold, discover a 5. The 5 is Lightfang or Mitrax, make it gold and win the game. That's like the simplest way to play.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Try to get try to get a token into a triple, and then use the triple to get an early 5, and then use that. Like it basically does need to be like Lightfang Mitrax, like something that scales permanently, right? Like, because if you get like a Sneeds or something, right? Golden Sneeds is not going to carry you to the end of the game, right? But Golden Lightfang can, Golden Mitrax can, so they have to have some scaling potential, and then use that to carry you from there, right? Yeah, makes sense.
One of my sort of unlikely things that works with Reno is goldening a Pagel, where I miss the Lightfang or the Mithrax, and I was like, oh, well, I get the Pagel. And I feel like when I'm playing Reno, indecision just kills me, right? When you're like, I can maybe hold a bit more. I took 20. Okay, I'm dead. Okay, that was bad. All right, so usually, all right, hit the Pagel, zap the Pagel. It wins you fights as well, and especially that early on, the chance that the Pagel attacks twice is not super small. So you're getting 4 cards a lot of the time, and yeah, 4 gold, and also sometimes just like, ooh, a Harbinger, this keeps me alive. I can now power level. So I'm not saying like, wow, Pagel is an amazing hero power target, but there's something that happens regularly for me when I miss. I'm just like, well, the Pagel is kind of power and economy right now, and allows me to level. And then sometimes you just find a reasonable board afterwards, right? Where you can keep that Pagel for a long time, especially if you're moving into a Lightfang build if you tier up to 5. And yeah, it's just a consistent base of income, right? So that's maybe like a little tidbit for Reno that I've observed.
Yeah, that is a good point. Not like being scared or not being happy with your hero power will kill you more often. Like, you'd rather hero power something you don't like that has potential than not hero power at all and wait for you to be a like single digit HP and be like, okay, well, I'm single digit, let's hero power now, and then die, right? It's because that power spike, right, even if it's not the best minion, can give you enough HP for you to get into a position where you can do something from there, right? I've had a lot of games where I get a triple and then I don't like what I got, but I hero power it anyways because I know that's like my one shot in the triple, right? I'm not going to roll into like 3 more elementals the next turn or something, right? So I go for it and then it's an okay golden minion and I'm able to salvage the game, right? So I don't win, but I get like top 4 or something like that. I've had a lot of games as well where just like I was able to win just by investing in that early golden minion. When Junkbot was still a tier 5 minion, I got Junkbot. I was like, you know what, I have mechs. I hero powered the Junkbot and I won that game. And I was just like shaking my head the whole game, just like, I'm winning. Oh, I'm still winning. I'm just like, but since I got that golden junk bot, right, I just invested into it, right? Bought all the menaces, bought another junk bot, just like, let's do it, right? Deflecto, everything on lock. And it was enough, and normally I would never do, I would not go junk bot strat, but since I invested into a junk bot and I had pieces already, I just committed to it. And it was enough to win the entire game. So, as long as you're committing to the comp and making sure you're making that golden minion count, it's way better than like, oh, I hit the junk bot, okay, let's just not wait and see if I find some other direction, right? Just that golden junk bot can be enough and things like that. So you just have to be aware. If you don't get something you want, it's not the end of the game. Just commit and see where it takes you.
So maybe a bit more of a flavor question, like what's your favorite minion to hit, right? Like if you can just choose, like, all right, I'm gonna triple into this and I'm gonna hero power this, right? Doesn't have to be the strongest, just like the one you like playing with the most.
Lightning. I mean, gold grabber is an interesting one. Sometimes you get like a super early triple, but I mean, if you can take a 4, you can usually take a 5.
I do like gold grabber.
Yeah, gold grabber is really good.
Him up after you get the bundle ready, right? Yeah.
You know what I was gonna say? I was gonna say Iron Sensei, and then you say Light Strike, and I'm just like, wait a minute.
I would never ever hero power a Sensei.
Dude, gun
to my head, I would not hero power a Sensei.
I've won quite a few games just hero powering Sensei super early, like just like Sensei Deflecto, and I'm like, okay, well, hero power Sensei, let's go. And it's enough, sometimes you just have like 2 huge Deflecto bots and it does well. But you're right, Light Fang is way better, but it popped into my head.
I feel like the golden sensei is when your when your 5 gold shop is just such garbage that you just can't buy, right? And then you go up, and then the next one is, I don't know, like a micro mummy and a sensei, and you're like, oh well, fuck it, all right, golden sensei, micro mummy on 6 gold, let's go.
I've had
maybe if it's like a deflector and a sensei, you go like, okay, sure, let's go.
I've had both of those situations and I've done it, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah,
it just scales like really. Like it's almost like a gold grubber in a way, right? Like you just like have a single gold grubber and it just scales in a way, and you can hit divine shield units or you can hit mechs and then put divine shield on, so it ends up being all right. I wouldn't like recommend it. Like if you can get any tier 5 minion, like take that instead. But the amount of games where I don't know what to do and then I get that early sensei and I'm like, okay, I can do something with this, and it works out is pretty high. So
I think that's where your skill as Reno is really tested, where, okay, I don't get the ideal situation, right? I don't get that triple on 8 or 9 gold. What do I do now, right? And a lot of the time it's like, all right, well, screw it. I guess I'm hero powering this thing to try and stay alive.
Should you? But are you going to mention Hogger?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you to guess, but I'm not a mystery. Okay, so, yeah, Hogger, I love Hogger, right? If I can hero power Hogger, let's go, baby. So much fun to play with.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
By far the most comp to play for me.
Would you pick it over Lightfang or Mitrax?
Yeah, just because I also value the fun factor. Like, snap it, right? Let's go. It's just like
you value strength and being boring, and then you don't pick Lightfang and you go for Hogger.
Yeah, I have certain. I'm completely irrational in that regard, but I will tank MMR trying to play AP Empire. It's like 100%. It's like, ask my stream. There's like, oh no, there's 2 Hoggers in the shop. He's gonna throw. So just like, fuck it. Like I've literally sold 2 jugglers in a juggler combo. Like, all right, we're doing it. Let's swap. Let's go.
I always like watching it. I don't like playing it. but I love watching Shady do it. But I don't want to be the one doing that kind of thing. And it gets my blood pumping in the wrong direction. That's all. But yeah, I think Reno's a really good hero. Does have a lot of potential, and like it's a really good hero for getting first place, right? You get that golden light fang, golden Mithrax, those early triples, right? You can get golden sixes, right? A lot of times I get golden sixes, and I would say it doesn't always work out most of the time, for some reason.
That's a Collins thing for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not that good because sixes don't scale other than Kali.
Yeah, that quickly, right? Like to get that golden six, you're playing super risky, and then you're not gonna scale the turn you get it. So you might take so much damage, and then you're like one loss to debt. So anytime you fight someone who's hyper skilled or something in any direction, you just lose. So I get golding at sixes end up like not working out too well. That's why the fives and stuff like that really works, because it's like a good enough turn where you can get it and then scale with similar strength to the people and just have like that extra value, right? Like, golden light fang is gonna outscale a lot of things, so makes sense there. The minion we want to talk about this week will be Celemental. So we've kind of talked about like tokens and Celementals and those kind of things like in like their whole group, but I think Celemental kind of deserves its own separate discussion, because it's such a unique token and how you can play with it and how you can make like some really stupid turns just based on this particular card, right? A lot of times when I see someone have an insane board like relatively early, there's a Celemental, golden Celemental or golden water droplet on the board as well. Just like, it was me, I did this. Just because it's so easy to decide when you get that triple that you want, right? You can decide you want sixes, you want fives, you want fours, whenever, right? You want 2 6s, right? This is the token that can do it for you, right? Just get 4 of these, and you get to get as many triples as you want. So it's just a really, really powerful card. Another thing with it is that you can run it and keep it in your hand a lot easier than some of the other tokens, where like Murloc token, right? It's hard to play around with it, right? Because you're keeping like a 2/1 or something, or 1/1s on your board that you don't really want, or you're taking damage because you have that weak statted minion there. Where with Telemental, the 2/2 stat line is not like horrible early, and then it's very easy to like have a copy of it in your hand without really worrying too much. So it's just very safe, very strong, and you get to decide exactly when you get to get that triple that you want. So this elemental just is a lot of the deciding reasons where some people just have like 3/6 drops super early, and that this card was involved in some fashion. So what do you guys think?
You can go first, RDU.
I think Sedimental should be a 1/2. I feel like 2/2 is way too high stat line, considering the things that you just mentioned, that it doesn't occupy that much board space, so you can just hold it in your hand whenever. It's easy to triple. You can decide when to triple it. You can triple on the token super easily. You can triple the main body, and then the token weighs it in the other token generators. It's just insane. And probably the best token generator overall. Obviously, the Murloc is more power in the first 2 fights, so you'd pick the Murloc over Celemental, but overall, including mid-late game, it's probably the best token generator in the game. So, like,
super
I don't know if they should nerf it to a 1/2, because it's also fun to play. So that's also a thing to consider. And not only perfect balance, but it's pretty OP right now.
I would agree with that.
I think all the points you guys mentioned, of course, agree. I think the main like power comes from not having to buy it from the shop on the turn you level to pull the 6. That's usually because it's so annoying when you're like, okay, I'm going to level to 5. That's going to cost pretty much all my gold. Then I'm going to have to sell things from my board to then buy the triple that I've frozen in the shop by. But Elemental is just like level, and I get paid for it. Sell my token, get my 6 drop. I can still buy something from the shop, extra bonus. Let's go, right? So yeah, that just makes it so so bullshit. Like, especially if it's an Omu with like, you see an Omu with 3 Sellies on his board, you're like, oh, he's won the game. It's gonna be so disgusting. Because you know he's gonna level, he's gonna have 2 coins extra. He sells the Selly, 3 coins, so nice. Buy something from the shop. Oh, nice. Yeah, so absolutely agree that is by far the strongest token, and especially something like a Hook Tusk as well has such an easy time getting 4 of them, right? You can just keep hero powering things until you get the 4th one, and then it's like 2 5s or 2 6s, whatever position you're in. So definitely the strongest token.
Yeah, I love getting this early, and sometimes, right, it'll be like mid game, and I'll start buying these because they're like a 1 gold investment, like overall, right? Because you can sell 2 for 2 gold, right? So it's a 1 gold investment. It's a 1 drop, super easy to pick up, and you can just like buy it, hold it in your hand, right? Like very easily. So even in the like mid game, I sometimes just pick these up because I'm like, oh, I want a triple. And this is like the easiest way for me to get the triple without like losing the game instantly, right? So I'll have games where I just have like 2 water droplets in my hand, just like, whatever. And just like waiting for that like free triple out of nowhere if I see another water droplet. So I can't do that with Murlocs at all. Like, I can't do that with any of the other tokens where I'm just like holding random pieces in my hand because the gold investment's too much, right? Where this is a 1 gold versus like 2 and board space for the other one. So I think there's a lot of value in this card, and it just wins games. Like a lot of the games where I just win, so like I win without struggling, this card's involved. If I win without like, it's just like, I have like 35 health game, like Salamento's involved in some fashion. So this card is pretty powerful, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
When you talk about having Sellies in your hand, is that just on Millhouse or on any champ?
Any champ.
For me, that would pretty much always be Millhouse.
I do it with every champ. But I mean, it depends on, like, so it's like I have a Salamental in my board, and I just buy one and I sell it.
Sure, you just have one. Yeah.
Yeah. Just random Selly for some reason. Like maybe I start with a Selly, right, and then like I don't see anything in the mid game, and like let's say it's like turn 7 or something. I see a Selly, I buy it, I sell one, and I just roll, right? So I'm spending like 2 gold to give myself a triple down the line, right? If I feel relatively strong, right, I don't feel like it's that bad of an outcome to keep it for a turn or 2 just to see, can I get another free triple out of nowhere? And then like, randomly I hit the Salamental, and I'm like, okay, well, here's a 6 out of nowhere, like that I don't deserve. So I've done that quite a few times, and it does sometimes work out. And even if you don't hit the triple, right, you end up like throwing the the 3 gold away, right?
Yeah, you're down a gold.
It's not too bad. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty interesting card, pretty strong, has a lot of upside in the card. I can see the nerf to 1/2 just because it is so powerful, but it would be mean. What if the water droplet stayed a 2/2 and the Salamento itself was a 1/2? What do you think about that adjustment? Where the Salamento's weaker, but the water droplet's kind of the same strength.
Any change would be good, right?
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
True. Right, because it would.
But I think there's more pressing matters in BGs right now.
I agree.
Harlan dealing 30 damage. We hear you loud and clear. Salamental to a 1/2. There we go.
Right. That's very true. I think there's definitely more pressing matters than this, but it is an interesting card, interesting topic there. Next topic we want to talk about is utilizing Wrathweaver. So I think Wrathweaver has been an interesting card. It used to, like, there's been metas around this card where I remember at the very beginning of Battlegrounds, I thought this card was so broken. And I specifically remember talking to Shady about this card and being like, "Hey, this is the meta. No one knows. Just go Wrathweavers." And I probably wasn't correct, but I was trying to find the advantage I could find in the meta game. But even past that, it's just been a card that always sees play. even in metas where you wouldn't think it shouldn't, right? When things are very broken, right? But the early game tempo you can get from this card, especially if like two of them, is really, really high. Where you have like 2 5 7s on the board and things like that. It's just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna take a lot of damage, from other sources in the early game while I have these on the board. So it's been pretty good, especially when Floating Watcher was at 3 and stuff like that. Right, this was really, really strong. When Tyrion was in the meta, this was super, super good because you could buffer Tyrion. So there's definitely been some metas where this card is like super, super premium. Nowadays, I wouldn't say this card is like necessary to do well or anything like that, but there are still a lot of strategies you can utilize with this card, especially with heroes that don't need a level on turn 2. They can pick this up and get a demon the next turn and like not be sad if that they're losing temples since they don't level on tunes, things like that, like reform and whatnot. So Shady really wanted to talk about this card, so if you want to take it away.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's just so many ways to utilize it. Where the maybe the most fun way to do it is if Murlocs aren't in, you can just play around this where you just build a big unit and then you get Gold Grubber, or if you're playing a hero that can do that, stay on tier 2 and play Wrathweaver Sarlisk, which works surprisingly well when Murlocs are out, just because poison is required to deal with these like massive bodies by the end game. But I think the most common way to use Wrathweaver is to just get it early and win fights, like you mentioned, and then you're just strong. And I think that's more a good player thing to then utilize it, because this would be the most common question if I have Wrathweavers on my board. I thought demons were bad. Why are we playing demons? Oh my god, streamer, why are we playing demons? I'm not playing demons. I have a big dude on my board who's going to carry me, and then I can level.
Oops.
And then I can buy different cards that can win the game for me later.
Very fair.
Yeah. Do you have any specific things for Wrathweaver RDU? Like, do you like the card? Do you buy it a lot, or just like, nah?
I don't think I buy it enough. Like, I'm thinking a lot of the games on mediocre heroes, I should be buying it more often, but I don't know exactly how much to stay on one. Like, I was actually curious about your guys' perspective on, like, do you level to 3 and take a 4 as soon as you get the triple? Do you stay on 1 and then triple into 2? Do you go to 2? Do you double level when it's 0 gold? I usually just go with the flow, and I don't think I'm always taking the right play.
I don't think I've ever tripled on 1 and gotten a 2, like period, like ever since the game come out. I don't think I've ever done that. I get a triple and I'm always like, give me some higher. Like, so maybe I don't do that myself. I like leveling, right? So I don't stay on 1 too long, right? It's only those specific heroes that can allow you to to stay on 1, right? They have a really good tier 1 hero power, right? Eudora, Rafam, maybe even banana guy, Mukla. So,
Mukla.
Yeah, I know his name. Banana guy sounds nice too, so it's really those particular heroes. The other times I do pick it up is when it's like I level to tier 2 when it's like Wrathweaver and Prisoner, right? Then I'm like, okay, it's a 3/5, right? And then Prisoner is pretty good itself. So then I use that, and then like the next row might be like another Wrathweaver, another demon. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing, right? So those are usually the situations where I'm picking them up like fundamentally. And if I get an early triple, right, I do take the 4 a lot of the times because there are a lot of like demon force. Well, the demon force have changed throughout time, right? But even still, this particular meta, right, the 3/5, if you don't have a full board, is still pretty good. The 4/4 is, okay if you have a imprisoner or something like that can give it some type of scaling. But it was really Floating Watcher that kind of synergizes really, really well with this card, right? I've always been a little bit sad that Floating Watcher got removed. I think there was potential with that with Wrathweaver, but it's gone, so I can't really like reminisce, right? But it won't like make your gameplay better since the card isn't in the pool right now. So
Yep. Yeah. To come back to RDU's initial question, I think it's superhero dependent, right? With which heroes you can stay on. Like I think something that's underused on specifically Barov, the gamble man, right, is you don't have to power on him. I think a lot of people just power and kill themselves, but like that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to level, and you can totally just like reform curve him, for instance, with Wrathweaver, and then just be strong, but then just level every turn after that, where you can just go 5, potentially 6 after that if you have a big Wrathweaver. Um, Another hero that's specific is Silas. This is a bit weird, but I got this idea from Purple, so I give credit where credit is due. He just hunts for Wrathweaver on 1. That's amazing. He just like buys tickets, buys Weavers, buys demons, and like he's going to get a Golden Weaver, right? He's like I'm not leaving tier 1 without this, right? So, and then he's just Omega strong and he can level after that. So that's definitely something I've started to think about whenever I've got a Silas and I see a Wrathweaver. Like, okay, I can try it. But for the most part,
You have to explain that a little bit more, because I'm not.
Oh, right.
Not
Sorry, yeah. So if you're Silas, right, you get tickets on your minions,
Yeah.
and you get to discover a minion from your current tavern tier. So Wrathweaver is a tier 1 minion, and there are fairly few tier 1 minions in the game, which is why, like when Maiev was in, it was so incredibly easy for her to make a triple because you would only roll on tier 1, you'd see the same minions over and over. So if you get to discover a tier 1 minion, it's very likely that you're going to get either, money, so it's fine, like you get your token, you get a demon, you can buff your Wrathweaver, you get another Wrathweaver, etc. And then once you have a golden Wrathweaver, you gain +4/+4 every time you play a demon. That is 2/3 of a jug on tier 2 or tier 1. So extremely strong, right? You are going to be winning fights, which is why when a Reno hero powers a Wrathweaver, he's not losing a fight for a long time unless, someone has an obscenely early poison, or it's an Alec here with like a crazy, high attack minion in position 1.
So are you staying tier 1 until you have like 2 golden Wrathweavers or
Well,
what's...
it's completely game dependent, right? Like for instance, if Murlocs are in, then you don't want to invest that much, and you might not even want to do it. If Murlocs are out, and it's all about how long are you, like how well are you hitting, right? I think a lot of the time it's when you very easily get your first golden Wrathweaver, and then you see the second one, you're like, sure, right? I can buy that and then gradually get the other one. But most of the time, 1 is just enough. Otherwise, like you're also taking a bunch of damage, right, when you introduce the second one, because a lot of the time the second one isn't golden straight away, so you have 2 regular ones, so then you're taking 3 damage per demon, so it's a lot. So usually it's only if it's free, the second one. But you can also just go with the flow, like we said, where you don't have to golden a Wrathweaver for it to be strong early, right? It's still, just keep it in mind, right? You mentioned it, you gave the good example with the Imprisoner. I think a lot of the time people shy away from this card because they think it's weak, but you buy it along with an Imprisoner. It is a 3/5, that is a 2-drop, a strong 2-drop, right? A 3/5. So then anytime you play a demon after that, it's just bonus, right? You find an Overseer, you find another Imprisoner, and you don't need much more than that to tip the scale in your favor in the battle. And just knowing that you're going to be winning the fights gives you that sense of security where, I can push 4 here. I could be pushing 5 here. So once again, I think that's where the main power lies, where you are stronger than other people that aren't utilizing this card unless they're high rolling like crazy, even if you don't have a golden copy. But if you have a golden copy, you're almost guaranteed to win the fight for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's an interesting strategy. I wonder if I'm gonna test it. I know myself. I might look at it. Maybe if there's like 2 Wrathweavers with tickets in the shop. That sounds like I'll think about it.
Yeah, I think to get started, you're like, okay, it's got to be good, right? Like, so like, all right, game, sell me on it, right? You don't want to just force it when you first try it.
Fair enough. But overall, it seems like we're saying there's a lot of ways to utilize the card. It is pretty powerful, especially if you synergize. You get pairs of it, or you get a lot of demons, right? Like 5/7, right? It's pretty easy to get as a stat line, and that beats most 2s, beats most 3s, like easily, right? You only need 2 demons, so and just having that can allow you to level easily or safely, or just like commit to some type of random scaling comp, maybe like Golden Wrathweaver, Golden Gold Grubber, or something like that, right? I remember a couple games where I've had something like that where I've had a Golden Wrathweaver with Gold Grubber, and then using that as like a baseline, and have like a Selfless or something, right? Like Selfless Baron or Selfless Macaw, and then just like running like Divine Shield comp with a Golden Wrathweaver and a Golden Gold Grubber or something like that, and like a couple poisons, and that's like my composition, right? So there are ways to utilize this card to do pretty well, but I think it is a card that is underutilized just because people don't like taking damage, and it hurts yourself, and you don't want to be like that. And people are like, oh, I can't get a pretzel mustard or something. But I'm telling you, that's people's reasons. I want that mustard and I can't get it with this. So, I'd say pick it up anyways. Who cares about that achievement? But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Our next topic.
Health is a resource.
Yes, I say this all the time.
I mean, if you're losing, you're taking the damage that Wrathweaver would have taken anyway, right? So you may as well win fights.
Yeah, that is perfectly true. Next topic we will be talking about is a little question I wanted to impose on you. Is every minion type viable? Is every archetype viable? It was a separate question. That's what I was thinking initially, but I want to know what you guys think. Do you think every minion type is viable in this current meta right now?
More than ever?
More than ever. Wow, that's a riveting, answer for that one. Any thoughts why?
I mean, I'm just thinking everything is kind of viable. Like Murlocs could use like a Mega Sword that cannot give Divine Shield. Mechs are fine. Pirates are fine. Whalebirds are a bit too fine. Beasts are fine. What else is there?
Demons, dragons, elementals.
Yeah, those all are fine.
Okay.
So like Murlocs are probably the weakest right now, if I'm not crazy.
That's it.
So when you say, for instance, that elementals are fine, do you mean they just have their particular niche, or like, oh no, elementals are perfectly strong, I play elementals all the time?
I feel like Nomi is good and wins games.
Okay.
Little Rag and Genie stuff, not very good.
Okay, so
they have like half their cards good, and they provide a lot of utility.
Yeah, I do think elementals make the game fun, right? Like the reroll elementals, elemental, etc.
Yeah.
So you're more looking at Nomi for elemental viability more than Little Rag, Genie as the.
Yes, Little Rag and Genie are not good.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay, that makes sense. I think Shady would probably agree with you.
Yeah, I don't like him either, for sure.
I've had some couple. Okay, so the issue with Little Rag, I play with Little Rag probably more than everyone else here, and just the issue is that the RNG factor for it is too swingy, right? If you have like double Little Rag and you hit nothing else, right, the card does nothing for you, right? But if you hit double Little Rag and like one like Tavern Tempest into like a Malgadon or something stupid, right? Then the amount of stats you get is like just like unbeatable or stuff. So there's definitely been games where I've had like a double Rag setup and I'm like, this is the most broken thing. And then also been games where I've had double Rag setup and I'm like, where are my elementals? Where are my minions, right? And the only elementals I'm hitting are like Tavern 1 stuff that I really don't want to invest in, right? It's like, this is like a +2/+2, like it's not doing anything for me. So just that RNG factor, it's like major RNG, right? Like compared to Caligos where battle cries are like half the minions or like a third of the minions, right? So there's a very high chance you're gonna see like every roll, whereas you're not really gonna see elementals every roll guaranteed, especially not high tavern tier elementals that are easy to combine with Tavern Tempest, Amalgadons, more Rags, more Genies, and stuff like that. So it's really tough to get yourself in the position, right? As well as with Little Rag, right? You need 6 drops, right? You need one. Like I don't think one Little Rag is can scale in any competent way, right? You need like double Little Rag, right? Which means you need 2 6 drops, right? But if you're getting 2 6 drops, like there's a lot of other options for you, right? There are so many other combinations of double six which will do way more than double rag versus like, you know, any like double Caligos or double Quilbor or even like double like Goldred with a Baron or something like double Pirate. And yeah, there's so much like other things you could be doing, right? So in order for it to work, you need that setup. Plus you need you know, 6 drops. Then you need to get lucky with the extra elementals you're hitting, and that kind of makes it very difficult for elementals to have that upside in terms of the little rag scaling. Nomi is a lot easier, right? Because you get one Nomi, and then every elemental's a hit, right? You get 2 Nomis, and you scale super quickly, as long as you're not dying immediately. And you can very easily just be buying like 40 elementals in the shop. So I do think the Nomi scaling is probably better than the little rag scaling right now, which is kind of funny. And it's also easier to get Nomi, right? So you get it quicker, and it's a lot easier to just like, commit to Nomi and get a golden Nomi and then like win the game from there. So I do agree. I would say that type of elemental is suffering the little rag elemental, but Nomi elementals are pretty viable in this current meta.
I think the question that's often asked, like when they're viable, right, is are they about as strong at any point in the game? I think when most people look at it, right, because most people say like, oh, mechs are so garbage, you can't win games with mechs. But I think it's healthy for a game that there are different tribes that have their different spikes during the game. So there are just certain tribes that are more geared towards the late game, like for instance, dragons, right? You're not playing dragons before you get a tier 6 unit, right? You can have some dragons on your board with a Razorgore, but that's your plan B. That's not something you aspire to get. Whereas like mech's their most pivotal unit becomes available, right, as soon as you level to 3, right? So it's just such a weird way to look at it. So I kind of like how things are for the most part, because yeah, I mean, demons could use some love overall. You don't really see many demons on the board, right? Usually it's to either feed a Wrathweaver or there's 2 jugglers in the shop. You know, fuck it, I'll go with it, right? You know, that happens sometimes. Murlocs for sure, I think, is probably the tribe that needs the most love when it comes to, you know, just standing on their own. Right now they feel like they're more just support, right? Like, oh, I'm using them to buff my Amalgadons. I feel like that's most of the time what Murlocs do. Or you're Jandis, right? If you're Jandis, sure, you can do Murlocs. Pirates, same thing, right? Like Pirates is pretty much just Eliza and build around, or APM Pirates, which I think is totally fine. I don't think you need to make like Ripsnarl Pirates late game viable. So yeah, overall, I would say indeed that they're viable, but not in the sense that a lot of people have, where, oh, I should be able to win a game on every single tribe, otherwise the game is trash and unbalanced. And I just don't share that opinion. I think it's perfectly fine to have certain tribes to be much more likely to win games because they're harder to set up, right? Like if you get double Caligos on your board, you should be more likely to win the game than someone that has a bunch of deflectors or a bunch of right. So that's a perfect example, because like mechs are super fine. Like for me, probably the best tribe in the game, MMR wise, but you just don't win as many games on them, which is totally fine.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the Murlocs being the weakest, but it makes sense because I used to play a lot of Murlocs, you know, back when that was the meta, right? And Murlocs were like in every lobby. But nowadays, right, I find it a lot harder to go Murlocs, or if I do go Murlocs, like I'm dying, right? I don't feel strong like at any point where it's like, oh, I'm gonna win this game for sure when I'm running Murlocs. I never think that. You know, it's like, nah. You know, maybe if I'm not running Murlocs, I'm just running like 3 Amalgadons, and then there's a poison Murloc as well in there. Like, okay, then it's not really a Murloc comp, though. I think that's the easiest comp to get like 3 Amalgadons, right? Because you just start buying Brand Lookout on Tavern 6, right? You put the Amalgadons in as a replacement for the Murlocs, right? But other than that, I don't really see like just normal Murlocs, no Amalgadons really winning a lot of lobbies there. You know, Jandis is the outlier, of course, but that is a good point. And it's probably right that out of all the minion types, that would be the one that I probably struggle with, that I, you know, sometimes tend to force, you know, just get it early, you know, a couple Murlocs, and you just you start forcing it, you hit a brand, and you're like, maybe I'll do it, and you still end up like kind of struggling, right? You maybe have one poison minion or two, but people have like super divine shield Quillboars that like 3-shot everything, So I think that makes sense. Probably um the one that struggles, right? I think I would agree that I think viability is probably there with everyone. Like I've won comp with every minion type out there, right? And even though some have better end games than others, but they have their place, right? Like jugglers, right, don't normally win games, but they can, and they spike a lot earlier than some of the other compositions, right? Like, there's always
You
been,
just end lobbies, right? If
yeah,
you get the golden juggler early,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Whereas, if you get like Macaw Goldrin, right, it spikes a lot later, but they have their strength, right, and they do a lot better if they have the setup right. But a lot of times you'll get killed before that if you're fighting like a juggler lobby and things like that. So I do
So
agree with RDU there, and that they're all
on the subject of Murlocs, like I wanted to ask both of you because I actively try to steer away with it with as much force as I can when sometimes you just have these shops where it feels like Bob is just baiting you down a path. Or like, all right, the two war leaders are the best things in the shop. I guess that 4/4 that buffs my Murloc is the best thing now. But those games never end well for me, where suddenly I'm on Tavern Tier 4, I'm in the mid game, and I maybe have one pair, and the rest is just like Murlocs where you bought a Seer or you bought a 4/4. So I was wondering, like, what do you guys do there? Do you just like very actively never buy the buffs and just like say, okay, we're not doing that? Do you buy the buffs, but then like try to get the brand, or do you just try to transition out of it?
I personally buy the bus, just knowing me, I do. And either I will try to hit an early, like I'll try to triple into an early 5, and then if it's what's it called,
Brand.
Burgurgo, no, not brand.
Right,
If it's
sure.
Burgurgo, then I'm like, okay, I'm not dying immediately, and then I'll like go to 5 and see. But if it's brand, I've pretty much found that if I go triple get a brand, I'm gonna die a lot of the times with Murlocs. It's just like the turn I take. So what will happen is I'll go get the brand, and then the turn I level to 5, I'll take too much damage, and then I have like one turn to roll, right, and hit a lookout. Basically, I have to hit a lookout. If I hit a lookout, then we have a game. Basically, if I don't hit a lookout, then the game's over for me. So that's been my brand experience. If I get the brand, then I need to hit a lookout at some point, the turn afterwards, or I'm dead. So that sucks. Burgurgo, however, it's a lot more forgiving, because if you have a full Murloc, you hit a Burgurgo, that's plus 4/4 to everything, and it just like it keeps you alive for like a significant amount of time. So. And you can put like a Baron or something, that an extra turn or whatever, like just for a turn, just to see, and that'll keep you alive. So like sometimes what happens is I'll go Murlocs, and then I'll like hit Burgurgo, and I'll put a Baron, and then like that alone will take me to like top 5, top 4, like that alone, like, and I'm just like, okay, and then like I get nothing else. And that already like got me into a comfortable spot. So that usually happens to me a lot. But whenever I do take it, I do like see myself struggling. So I think it's a good idea to really analyze whether or not you want to be going Murloc this game, right? If they are giving you everything, then sure. But
So yeah,
there is a big weakness.
so unless everything hand, that's not so great. What about you, RDU? What do you usually
I
do
mean,
when
I
you
feel about
find
the same way. And like with Murlocs, I kind of like staying on Tavern 4, looking for Bogargle mostly, but yeah, Bran as well. And I'm not really super happy to go to 5 unless, I don't know, unless I really need more Bogargles, because you pretty much have everything you need on 4. So like, unless you have like super good board and you need Bran Bogargle, I would just stay on 4 most game with Murlocs, to be honest. Just cycle buffs and look for talk spins. It's pretty boring, but I don't know if there's anything better you can do. Sure, with Jadis you can go 5 and then maybe even go to 6, but on other heroes, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just always find myself bottoming out in that situation where like, ugh, so
Eh,
I'm just like really cautious of like, all right, don't lead me down this path, Bob. I'm gonna buy the first thing that's not Murloc that's decent that I see.
Yeah, you just take too much damage when you level to 5. A lot of times with the comp, like I've done it so many times. It's just like you just take too much damage. It's not worth it. Just try to get the Burger and then see if you can do something from there. If you get the brand on for the Burger, like it's surprisingly easy to get the Murloc triples because a lot of times the Murlocs you're starting with are like Tavern 1 Murlocs. So there's a lot of times you have a good chance of getting at least 1 or 2 triples, right? You hit a lookout, it's super easy to get another triple and things like that, right? So you have the opportunity of getting a 5, right? And seeing what the 5 gives you kind of determines whether you keep it for a turn and try to like commit, or you just like keep the strong Murlocs and then get rid of everything else, right? Like that's why some people have like one poison Murloc in their composition that's like somewhat tanky, right? They started Murlocs
Yeah,
and
the
then
chosen one.
yeah, the
That
chosen one,
survived
yeah,
to
and
culling.
yeah, every other one got ripped away, and you poison that chosen one, and then you just like run Menagerie. That's what I see, or that's what I do a lot of the times if I'm going Murlocs. I start Murlocs and then I swap. I keep the one I like, and then everything else dies when I go Menagerie. Yeah, that's usually what happens to me. But yeah, I thought it was an
All right.
interesting discussion, just because I initially was thinking, oh, do I play every comp, every archetype, and I was like, I kind of do. So I wanted to see if you guys kind of agreed with the viability of every single archetype. So it's funny to see you all kind of agree. Maybe Murlocs are a little weak, maybe a little Rag Elements is a little weak, maybe Demons don't win lobbies, but they can like end other people's games really early. So yeah. Kind of a side note, what's your favorite minion lobbies? What do you like seeing like removed from the pool, right? What are you happy when you're like, oh, this is gone, yes, this is gone, yes, this is gone, yes. What kind of thing do you like there?
You can go first, RDU. What's your favorite like lineup?
I like not having Quillbar and not having mechs because then I can just go for raw stats, put the biggest minion first, and kill them.
Do you also
The
not like
module bullshit.
Murlocs then, right? If you're going
Yeah,
for
I
big
also don't
sets.
really like Murlocs.
Yeah, so it'd be no Quillbors, mechs, and Murlocs. So you could just go
Yeah, I'm
big
always
stats.
winning those lobbies.
Like big stats, smash. Sure.
Raw stats.
Makes sense. I like lobbies where all the bad tier 6 minions are gone. So that it's like, oh, I'm getting a 6. Every option's a good option. So that's usually elementals that kind of struggle. I like when pirates are in and dragons and stuff like that. So when all the bad tier 6s are out of the pool, it's like, yo, let's go. I can't go wrong from here. That kind of thing. What about you, Shady?
Yeah, for me, it depends whether my hero will be good at pulling 6s or not. So any hero that's not good at pulling 6s, mechs gotta be in for me. Like it's so good because tier 4 becomes hardly worth playing if mechs aren't in because like module is such a powerful card as mentioned by RDU, and then deflecto and module on a reset can just carry you on their own for quite a long time, right? If you get like a 15 damage deflecto that gets to deal its damage 2 times, and then you have that reasonably sized egg that then resets and does some damage on its own, you get one arm of the empire, suddenly you're talking, right? That comp already is headed towards tier 4. If you have, say, a hook dusk, right, then I'm just looking, all right, just give me my tokens, right? I just want the money, right? Same with millhouse, right? If I get excited when I have a millhouse, I'll be like elementals in, beasts in, murlocs in, pirates in, let's go baby, you get all the money, you just get to play the game, right? Those, so for me it's a bit hero dependent, but I will say if I have a good hero, millhouse for me is a good hero. It's just like, give me my tokens so I can do my shenanigans, and then give me good 6-drops, right? So if you're playing Millhouse, you want elementals to be in, but if you're not Millhouse, you want elementals usually to be out because Millhouse loves the reroll elemental, this elemental, etc. But if you're not Millhouse, right, you just want to see pirates in, Quillbors in, and then elementals out, and then a variation of the other things, because then you just know, oof, I can hit the Eliza, I can hit the Flat Tusk, and there's no Rag, no Genie, no Gar in my way, right? So that's usually it for me, like hero dependent, token shenanigans really fun, mechs for the bad heroes, and then the heroes that have a really easy time pulling sixes, Pirate Quillbore and Elemental out.
Yeah, I agree. I think when tokens are in and you got those good heroes that could really utilize it, it's so fun, right? I mean, it's so mean. Honestly, like you're and you're just like getting free money, and it's just like, yeah, I'm sorry, guys, you're getting robbed here. You know, I'm Janice today. You know, free fives or stuff like that. Yeah, it's just kind of unfair, you know. So I do agree with that. When you can get those token heroes and the token shenanigans, they're all in, and you just go from there and dominate the lobby. So I agree with that kind of melody. Next thing we're talked about is making plays to consistently win. So sometimes when I'm like streaming or when I'm watching people stream, right, there'll be some situations where the plays I make look a little risky or look a little weird, right? But they're like the only line I see to go for like that first place spot. And when I was watching RDU, I see that he does this a lot as well, where it's like he's gonna go for the play that's gonna get him the wins, and he does get the wins, you know. But a lot of times, right? Sometimes when you do that, you get punished and you get like top 8 or top 7 and stuff like that. So like even just the games today, right? You can see there's a lot of like ones in there. There's all 7s, you know. No, not a lot, but there's a couple of 7s in there. Just like going for the risky play, and sometimes you get punished, but a lot of times you get rewarded in that first place. And sometimes when people are asking like, how do you win, or how do you get better and stuff like that, right? Being able to identify those moments and times, like sometimes you'll get an early pair, or I'll get an early pair, and I remember a game I had, was it yesterday or something, where I was just holding my triple in my hand, and I was just like, I'll just wait. and I just like waited until I leveled the tower in 5, just dropped it there, got my 6, right? And then I used that 6 to win the game, right? Where other players would have just gotten their 4 or gotten their 5 or whatever, right? And then like maybe top 4, right? And instead of like taking a little bit extra damage early, getting that 6 and then using that to win the game. So I see RDU doing this a lot, just going for that riskier line, at least riskier early game, but then getting that big power spike and then like stabilizing from there, right? It does take a lot of skill to be able to like identify those moments and then also be able to stabilize. And then sometimes, you know, it doesn't go well, but a lot of times it does, and you can then get like that consistent win streak going. So I just wanted to see if you guys had any other like ideas or tips or like mental states when you're playing and things like that.
I don't really like. I play to win, as you said. I, if anything, need to play more defensively in some situations. So I'll definitely listen to the KD podcast where he talks 2 hours about the town build, so I can like play more defensively, because I just play to win, and like I don't conceive playing for like 4th place, but I should some of the time.
Me during this podcast with Shady has made me so much better at identifying, oh, maybe I need to like slow down here. Because I remember like every game is a tier 6 game, like initially for me, like every game. It doesn't matter what's in the shop, what's in the lobbies. I don't care. Let me get my tier 6. And Shady's like, you know, you could like not do that and like win more games. I'm like, what are you talking about? What is not getting a 6? And like, okay, think about this. Okay, you get the 4, you stay on 4, you don't take 50 damage, and then later on you get your 6 and then you win. And it's like, huh, I'll try that. And it's been working out for me. So I do think you know, I've definitely have that issue, and I still have that issue. It's like it's not fixed, where just being aware that you can be safer and still win the lobbies, even if playing safer can still win you lobbies. And that's something that I learned a lot just like listening to Shady and like hearing his ideas on how to play the game.
For me, it's the exact opposite, right? Like sometimes you guys be like, no, go for the win, you got this, you guys. Like, 3rd is okay, right? That's positive MMR. So it's the exact opposite. So Yeah, I recognize, you know, when I got the hook tusk and the fancy stuff, I'm like, all right, slam dunk, let's do this. Let's get the flat tusk. Let's go for the win. But a lot of the time I was like, oh, Harbinger, hard right into tier 4. Like, we're not leveling anymore. We're just because I'm so comfortable once I get Harbinger or, you know, like get like a module and an arm. I'm just like, why take the chance? Why am I ever going to 5 here? And yeah, sometimes you're just too healthy and too strong to not do it, because as much as I shit, so this is the thing, right? I shit on people that go to 5 with like kill them, right? They're on tier 5. Their board is absolute garbage and no triple. I'm just like, why did you go to 5? This is suicide, right? And as much as I shit on that play, if your board is strong, sometimes people can look at my board as like, why is this guy not going to 5? He's so strong, right? So it's the opposite there. Like sometimes I'll be too strong and in too good of a position where I could be tier 6 2 turns from that turn, but then I didn't do it because I was too comfortable on tier 4. And I, you know, maybe I get really unlucky and there's like a really big high roller later on and then just deals 33 to me out of nowhere. And I'm just like, oh crap, I didn't even get top 4 now because I played too safe. Right. So that's my issue. But yeah, overall, I'd say I probably do a lot better with bad heroes than other like high level players,
That's
just
probably
because
true.
yeah,
Actually,
I have so much practice just because tier 4 does not discriminate, right? We welcome all tiers of heroes, right? You're a hook dusk that had a rough start, you know, welcome here. You're a pyramid, that's fine, you know, just join the club, right? Just get some deflectos. Nobody looks at that silly hero power anymore. So yeah, that's probably my strength, where I take like Muklas to top 2 all the time because it's just like, all right, well, all I got to do is hold some bananas, find a divine shield, and then play tier 4, right? And then you get an arm and you can push for second.
all right.
I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to ask here.
Yeah, fair enough. But just in general, I I do think just having that mentality of going for the wins, going strong or playing strong is a good it's a good mental state to have, right? Some people play very safe, right? Like Shady and like don't capitalize on those moments where you can go for like the high roll, right? Like basically, right? You sometimes you see like your opponents, right, and they have the high rollers because they like doing this, right? And the higher level lobbies have more people that are willing to take that chance, right? Go for the strong things, right? And if you're not also doing that, right, you'll never beat them in a sense, right? So um, it's one of those things, right? But that balance is tough in that sometimes you're playing too risky for no reason, right? And that happens to me a lot. Uh, I, I don't know if you guys have this, but do you guys like sometimes get in like a good groove or something where it's like I like you feel like you can't lose. Like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like you feel like you know what you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, first place this game easy. First place next game easy. First place, da 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 easy. Like I have that sometimes where, just like I'll have those days where I just feel comfortable in the game or something. Maybe I slept right and I my games go really well or something like that. You guys have that as well.
I have it, but I also have the opposite of like
Me
just
too.
having only bad games. Like another top 8,
Yeah.
another Maev Romu top 8 when Maev was in the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Oh man, you're very shady.
Definitely goes both ways. Yeah. I do have those invincible days for sure where you're just, you know, I'm much more on tier 6 on those days, right? Because I'm just like, let's do it, right? I think it's also something where you get reinforcements where I took the risk, I got rewarded. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it. And if you have some consecutive games where it works out, and you're playing well on top of it, right? Where you make the right hedges and the right turns, and you take opportunities where they're maybe not so easy to see, yeah, that pays off. But then the exact opposite can happen where you might make the right play, but you get punished like crazy. You're like, oh, I guess I messed that up, right? And then you have another game where you might make then a very tiny mistake, and you're like, oh, I'm throwing again, right? But like the first game, you didn't actually throw. You just, you lost to 15%, or that happens, right? Like 85% of the time, you were fine there. So yeah, it's just the snowball effect both ways. Where if I feel like I'm playing really well, I'm like, oh, I'm playing really well, right? I can do this. And then otherwise, I just start assuming that I'm playing badly. And it's this self-fulfilling prophecy where you start thinking you're playing bad, you actually start playing badly. And it goes the other way.
Yeah, my streams don't last long when that happens.
Yeah, those streams are short, man. Those are short streams.
Yeah, but that's very it's very true. Good point. I like you bringing the realism at the end with the lose streak turn games days as well. So yeah, but that will be our show for today. I think we had a really nice show, really interesting discussion there. But that's generally it. I want to thank everyone for the feedback. Thank you, RDU, for joining us here. It's always a pleasure having you here as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Well, great, man. Cheers.
Hope you had fun, and appreciate all the viewers and all the people giving us comments and nice words and stuff. You can find us feedback at HSBG Podcast at Gmail if you have any nice things to say about any one of us. And you can reach me and Shady at Educatedcollins and Shady Bunny on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter is usually where we like to hang out. And where can they find you, RDU?
Twitch TV RDU Live and Twitter G2RDU. And Instagram RDU.hs.
All right, go get on that Instagram, folks. I barely touch mine, but I think there's a lot of good, fancy pictures. We didn't really talk about your the cooking for your. How you been liking that those cooking shows? I really like seeing some of the stuff you make. It looks fun.
I like it, but it's like a different world. It's like very different than the gaming world. I'm trying to combine the two of them, and I feel like I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it quite a lot. And I prefer that to playing other games. But maybe I'll get into playing other games while still playing Battlegrounds, Constructed, and cooking. So we'll see what the future holds.
I think you could play Battlegrounds while cooking. I think that's
playing
very
Battlegrounds while cooking. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's very doable. They give you that timer, right, where you can just like set things up. Okay, right, you have to think on the fly though, right? Because you need to focus on the cooking, and then you have like 15 seconds to do your turn. Okay, let's start baking or whatnot.
That's a good idea though.
Definitely sounds fun. But that will be our show for today. You can catch us on YouTube tomorrow and on all the podcast directories that people have told me that they wanted on. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we'll see you on the next week.